My name is Emily Harris, and I'm 24. I build cases from numbers for a living. Quiet, stubborn little truths that don't care how anyone feels about them. By day, I'm a forensic financial analyst. By night, I'm the kind of woman who still believes love deserves ceremony, warmth, effort, follow through. I had all three laid out on our dining table, two place settings, ironed linen napkins, the good stemware, 30 candles trembling like they'd rehearsed for this specific moment. Herb crusted salmon, his favorite, roasted asparagus slick with garlic and lemon, a chocolate souffle that required an embarrassing number of test runs, and the Pinot Noir he once said made him feel like the main character. I wanted us to feel like that again, like a we. At 6:57 p.m., I lit the final ring of tea lights. At 7:02, the front door opened. Laughter came in with the cold air, and my boyfriend Daniel stepped inside with his sister Olivia and his best friend Mark. They were supposed to drop by, 2 minutes at most, then head to just a casual night out. I turned from the candles, a little startled, but still smiling because surprises can be sweet when you're not bracing for impact. Daniel's eyes did a quick scan of the room, the roses from the farmer's market, the wine breathing on the sideboard, the way I'd tucked a tiny sprig of rosemary into each napkin ring. The laugh that came out of him wasn't delighted. It was performative, the kind of sound people make when other people are watching. "Oh my God, Emily," he said, and flicked a glance at Olivia. "Stop trying to be romantic. It's pathetic." There are sentences that change a room's temperature. The word pathetic is a faucet that only turns to ice. Olivia's face registered the impact before mine did. Her smile faltered, then slid off completely. Mark looked down at his phone as if there were instructions there for how to disappear. My body did what trained bodies do in a blast. Triage. Breathe. Don't cry. Count something. I counted candles. 30. I set down the bottle of wine so gently the glass sang. I stepped into the glow and blew out the first candle. Then the next. Each little flame resisted for a split second. Like it too, had hoped tonight would be different. By the time I reached the 10th, nobody was breathing. At 15, the room smelled like smoke and rosemary, and the end of something I'd been trying to keep alive with wishful thinking and a kitchen torch. "What are you doing?" Daniel's voice cracked on the U. Maybe irritation, maybe nerves. It didn't matter. "Learning," I said, blowing out number 16. "Romance is pathetic when it's one-sided." 17. So I'm done being pathetic. 18, 19, 20. The roses were softer than they looked as I gathered them. I didn't slam them into the trash. I laid them there, even now unable to be cruel to something that had only tried to be beautiful. Olivia started, a warning, a plea, I couldn't tell. Mark had found something fascinating about the floor molding. I walked past the three of them and pulled open a drawer. My phone sat on the notepad where I keep shopping lists and reminders. I typed, Tony's Pizza or Golden Walk. I can do separate apps if you're not hungry. The kind of message you send a roommate. Daniel blinked like a cloud past the sun. "You're overreacting." "I'm recalibrating." I didn't look at him when I said it. I was looking at the souffle that had fallen in on itself like a quiet collapse. "We can eat like roommates from now on." "Emily, it was a joke," he said, but the apology never arrived. What arrived was that squirming, stage fright energy when a bit dies in front of an audience and the comedian blames the room. He expected a scene, maybe a tearful defense, maybe pleading. Data point for later. Men who want wars, where you've built a timetable, rarely know what to do with a ceasefire. Olivia grabbed her purse. "We should go," she told him, and I wanted to hug her for understanding that there are moments when staying is taking sides. Mark muttered something about a meter running and followed her out. The door clicked shut. The house expanded around the silence, the way a chest expands after it finally exhales. I set plates on the table anyway, out of respect for the work. I poured wine for one. Daniel tried the tone I call damage control. "Baby, today was brutal. You know how I get when I'm overwhelmed. I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" I asked, and tasted the Pinot Noir that once made him feel like the lead. "Like a practice insult?" "You were being a lot," he said, groping for a word that would make me complicit in my own embarrassment. It felt like pressure. "Pressure to what?" I kept my voice level, the same way I do when explaining a flagged transaction to a client who swears the money just moved by itself. Acknowledge that your girlfriend loves you? He couldn't answer that, so he didn't. He retreated into the kitchen, where he stared at the salmon as if it had taken something from him. I ordered pizza, one medium margarita, no sides, and ate it in the living room while the special dinner cooled in the kitchen like an exhibit. Here is what Daniel didn't know about the woman he dismissed in front of his sister and friend. I track things, not because I'm suspicious, because structure comforts me. Numbers don't gaslight. For 5 years, I've saved every receipt and categorized every expense the way other people make photo albums. There's a story there, a long one, about who showed up and how, about patterns that begin as kindness and calcify into expectation. In week 1 of Operation Roommate, Daniel actually looked lighter. He told his mother on speaker, loud enough for me to hear from the hallway, that I was finally chilling out, that he could breathe without the constant. He trailed off, and I supplied the missing word in my head, effort. He wanted to breathe without effort. In week 2, his car needed brake work. He hovered in the archway with the paper from the shop like a teenager with a permission slip. Could you? They do 0% financing, I said. Ask them for the plan. His face did a 5-second weather report. Confusion, annoyance, a flash of panic, then the old charm struggling to its feet. You always handle car stuff. I handled car stuff when we were a team, I said, and the word team echoed in the empty dining room. Roommates handle their own transportation. He laughed like I'd delivered a good line, but it didn't reach his eyes. Later, he texted a link to a new steakhouse and asked if I wanted to try it Saturday. Do they take separate checks? I replied. I wasn't being petty. I was holding the perimeter of a boundary he'd poured gasoline around and tossed a match at. I went to bed early, pretending not to hear the restless opening and closing of drawers, as he looked for a metaphor he could afford. The next morning, I made coffee and opened the spreadsheet that never asked me to lower my voice. There they were, 5 years of life lived in cells. Gifts, trips, dinners, the quiet purchases that keep a shared house humming. It wasn't the money that made my throat tighten. It was the asymmetry, a table with one leg doing the work of 4. You can balance like that for a while, if you're strong and stubborn and pretending the wobble is normal. But one nudge, one word like pathetic, and the table remembers gravity. I stared at the column titled Romantic Gestures, the one I used to track because I enjoyed seeing love quantified as a ritual, not as a ledger. Flowers to his office when a campaign launched. The weekend trip when he hit quota. The necklace when his father finally said he was proud. My notes were gushy then. He smiled with his whole face. He said he felt seen. He kissed my hand in the lift, like a movie. There were almost no entries in the column next to it. Maybe 3. All early, all small. How long had I been playing both roles, giver and witness? That night, I set 2 bowls on the counter and scooped ice cream. He took his silently. When I turned, I caught his reflection in the window. A man standing in a warm kitchen, spoon suspended, looking like he'd lost something and hadn't realized it was never his to keep. We were no longer fighting. That was the strange part. We'd skipped the fireworks and gone straight to the aftermath, the hiss of something cooling. The neighbor's dog barked. A car door shut. Somewhere a couple laughed in a shared rhythm. We stood with our separate bowls and the distance that enters a room through a single sentence and makes itself at home. In the dark glass, my own reflection looked back at me with an expression I recognized from the office when a case is about to click. Not triumph, not even relief, just inevitability. The math had been waiting. The candles had been a countdown I didn't know I'd started. I washed my bowl, dried it, and slid it into the cupboard. I'm going to bed, I said. He tried again. The plea was small, almost careful. Can we not make everything about numbers? I turned off the kitchen light. Then make it about effort, I said, and left him with the cooling salmon, the fallen souffle, and the first night of a life where I stopped explaining how to love me. Some truths arrive loudly. Mine came on the soft soles of my own feet, carrying a spreadsheet I hadn't planned to open and a resolve I didn't have to announce. The next part wasn't war. It was documentation. And documentation, in my world, is destiny. When you stop chasing someone, the silence that follows is louder than any argument. The next morning, Daniel woke up to a shared Google Sheet notification on his phone. Title, Household Ledger 2.0. No emojis, no passive-aggressive notes, just columns. Date, description, amount, split, status. Color-coded, neat, impossible to misinterpret. I watched him read it over coffee. He looked like a man who just realized the invisible work of the relationship had a price tag. Wow, he said, fake laughing. You're really serious about this, huh? I'm serious about accountability, I replied. You said you felt pressured before. This way, we're both free. That word, free, should have comforted him. Instead, it scared him. He just didn't know it yet. At first, Daniel acted like nothing had changed. He Venmo'd me for half the utilities, even made a joke about our new adulting phase. He told his mom over speakerphone, loud enough for me to hear, "She's finally chilling out. I can breathe again without feeling like I'm being smothered." I stirred my tea and let the lie float between us like steam. When you love someone, you think if you're just calm enough, patient enough, they'll meet you halfway. But halfway only works when both people are walking. He wasn't. He was standing still, waving at me like I was the one drifting away. It started small. His car needed brake work, $380. "Babe, can you cover it this time?" he asked. "I'd suggest a payment plan," I said without looking up. "0 interest for 6 months if you ask nicely." He blinked. "You always handle car stuff." "I handled it when we were a team," I said. "Roommates handle their own." Later that week, he texted, "Steakhouse downtown this Saturday?" I typed back, "Sure. Do they take separate checks?" No reply. That Friday, he came home with takeout and a half-hearted grin. "Let's just eat here. Cheaper anyway." I smiled politely and made a mental note. The first time, he noticed the cost of affection. By week 3, he stopped pretending it didn't bother him. "You don't ask how my day was anymore," he said one night. "You don't tell me I look good before work." He hesitated. "Are you planning to stay mad forever?" "I'm not mad," I said. "I'm just not pathetic anymore." He frowned, searching my face like it was written in a language he'd forgotten. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I won't beg to be appreciated by someone who thinks appreciation is pressure." The words hung there, heavy, factual, like numbers in a report you can't dispute. He tried a new tactic after that. Charm. Texts with winking emojis, "Hey, gorgeous." "Miss your cooking." Like affection could erase evidence. I responded with receipts. Half the groceries equals $67. Venmo when you can. Love wasn't gone. It was just being audited. By week 3, he stopped pretending it didn't bother him. "You don't ask how my day was anymore," he said one night. "You don't tell me I look good before work." He hesitated. "Are you planning to stay mad forever?" "I'm not mad," I said. "I'm just not pathetic anymore." He frowned, searching my face like it was written in a language he'd forgotten. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I won't beg to be appreciated by someone who thinks appreciation is pressure." The words hung there, heavy, factual, like numbers in a report you can't dispute. He tried a new tactics after that. Charm. Texts with winking emojis. "Hey, gorgeous." "Miss your cooking." Like affection could erase evidence. I responded with receipts. Half the groceries equals $67. Venmo when you can. Love wasn't gone. It was just being audited. The first time Daniel looked genuinely worried was the day his credit card was declined. He was standing at the kitchen counter, holding his phone like it had betrayed him. "I'll move some things around," he muttered. "You could also stop pretending it's fine," I said quietly. That night I heard him pacing the hallway, talking in a low voice to someone, probably his mom again. "She's different now," he said. "Colder, like a robot." I sat on the couch, laptop open, updating our expense tracker. If self-respect makes me a robot, I thought, maybe machines are freer than people think. Foreshadowing the storm. A few days later, I came home to find him scrolling through his phone, smirking at something. "What's funny?" I asked. "Nothing, just something from work." He locked the screen too quickly. Something in me noted the shift, the same instinct that catches an inconsistency in financial data. A story changing mid-sentence. An edit someone doesn't want you to notice. I didn't ask again. I just opened a new tab in my mind labeled Narrative Control. Because men like Daniel don't stay silent when they feel small. They rewrite the story instead. And sooner or later, I'd hear the version he was telling the world. That night, I sat at the dining table where the candles once were, now replaced by bills and quiet. In the reflection of my laptop screen, I didn't look angry. I looked prepared. There's a moment before every investigation when you realize the truth isn't something you find. It's something you've been watching all along, waiting for it to stop pretending. And Daniel's truth was starting to unravel right in front of me. I always thought betrayal came with noise, slammed doors, raised voices, confessions blurted through tears. But in my case, it arrived as a message request. It was a Thursday morning. My phone buzzed between spreadsheet tabs. The sender's name caught me off guard. Emma Johnson, Daniel's coworker. We'd had dinner as couples once, the kind where you smile politely through inside jokes that aren't yours. She'd seemed kind, observant, quiet. Her message started with, "Hey, I hope this isn't weird." And that phrase alone told me it was going to be exactly that. "I thought you should know what Daniel's been saying about you at work. He's been telling everyone you've become financially controlling, that you're punishing him for asking for space by forcing him to pay half of everything. People think you're emotionally abusive, Emily." I couldn't listen anymore. I read the paragraph twice, not because I didn't understand it, but because I did. This wasn't new behavior, it was escalation. Men like Daniel don't just avoid accountability, they outsource blame. They build sympathy through selective storytelling. I closed my laptop and sat there, pulse steady, not from calm, but from clarity. If he wanted to rewrite our history, then fine. I'd bring receipts. Literally. That night, I asked him to sit down. He walked into the kitchen like a man expecting a reconciliation. His soft, "Hey babe," practiced, his body language performative. I motioned toward the table where my laptop waited, open to a familiar spreadsheet. "We need to talk," he said first, which made me smile because he thought he was the one initiating it. "Perfect," I replied. "Let's." He blinked, caught off guard. "Emily, this has gone on long enough. You've been distant, hostile. Everyone can see it. My mom says—" I turned the laptop toward him. Rows and columns filled the screen, color-coded and unarguable. "I built something for us," I said, my voice calm. "It's the full picture of our partnership. 5 years' worth." He exhaled sharply. "I don't want to see your stupid spreadsheets." "These aren't stupid," I said evenly. "This is 5 years of our financial and emotional record. The same level of documentation I use for federal audits. The same precision I'd use for fraud analysis." That word, fraud, made his jaw tighten. "Don't start," he said. "You're being dramatic." I clicked to the next tab. Charts appeared. Bars of blue and gray, one towering, the other almost invisible. "I paid 81% of our shared expenses, $127,000, over 5 years," I said, scrolling down. "You paid 19%, about $29,000. That's the easy math, but here's the part that hurts more than numbers." A new chart filled the screen. Romantic gestures. Flowers, trips, dinners, gifts. Every small thing meant to make you feel seen. I highlighted the total, $52,400. He scoffed. "You're seriously turning love into math?" I met his eyes. "No, I'm measuring effort, because effort is the one thing that shouldn't need math. And yet here we are." He leaned back, arms crossed. "So what, you want me to start paying you back for dates? For gifts? That's pathetic." I smiled faintly. "Funny. That's the same word you used when I tried to celebrate our anniversary." His face went red. "That's not the same." "It's exactly the same," I cut in, still calm. "Because in both cases, I was trying to love you, and in both cases, you called it pathetic." Silence. Then a sharp inhale, anger rising to replace shame. "You're obsessed with control," he spat. This presentation, these spreadsheets, this is why I couldn't breathe around you." "Control?" I asked softly. "No, evidence." He laughed bitterly, but it cracked halfway through. "You're making me look like a bad guy." "I'm not making you anything," I said, closing the laptop. "I'm just finally describing what you are." He stood abruptly, knocking over his chair. "Fine. You want the truth?" he shouted. "Sometimes your romantic crap made me feel suffocated. It was desperate and needy, like you couldn't exist without me." I stared at him for a moment, genuinely studying him, the boyish anger, the pride barely covering fear. "So you felt suffocated by being loved," I said quietly. "Got it." He glared at me. "I felt trapped. You made everything too serious, too intense. I just wanted to breathe." "Love without need is just friendship with benefits, Daniel." He froze. "But I get it now. You didn't want partnership. You wanted to be adored without having to adore back. You wanted to be wanted without having to want anyone else in return." He didn't respond, because I'd nailed it. The room was still, the kind of stillness you get right before a confession or an earthquake. Finally, he muttered, "You always twist everything." "No," I said. "You confuse gratitude with pressure. You think accountability is punishment, and you call affection suffocation because it asks you to reciprocate." He looked at the door like it was a lifeboat. "I can't do this right now." "Of course you can't," I murmured. "You never could." He left. After the door shut, I stared at the table. My laptop screen dimmed to black, but I could still see the faint reflection of the charts. The visual proof of what I'd known for months, maybe years. Love had been a one-way investment, and I'd been paying interest on a balance that was never mine to carry. I picked up my phone. Emma had messaged again. "You okay? I didn't mean to stir trouble." I typed back, "No trouble, just clarity." Because that's what truth feels like when you finally stop arguing with it. Quiet clarity. But what I didn't know yet was that Daniel wasn't finished. Men like him rarely leave cleanly. They need an audience for their downfall. And the next act would make pathetic sound merciful. There's a special kind of peace that comes after the truth detonates. It's not relief, it's the stillness of wreckage. The kind where you stand there staring at the pieces, realizing you don't have to fix them anymore. For a few days after the confrontation, Daniel was a ghost in his own home. He stopped slamming doors, stopped joking, stopped trying to bait me into emotional reactions. Instead, he started performing. He cooked dinner once, pasta from a jar, and left a Venmo request for half the groceries. He asked about my work project with a forced brightness that sounded rehearsed. One night, I came home to candles on the table again. Same kind I used before, but this time, they felt like props. He stood in the doorway, smiling too wide. "See? I can do romantic too." I looked at the receipt tucked under a plate, $48.12 for dinner, and another Venmo link already waiting in my inbox. He wasn't rebuilding, he was replicating, love bombing with a payment plan. A week later, I caught him in the living room scrolling through my Instagram. He had one of my old anniversary posts open, us smiling, my caption reading, "Still choosing you." He was editing the tagline for his own profile, changed creative strategist to trying to be better. When I asked why, he said, "It's good optics." That's when I realized he wasn't trying to apologize. He was trying to rebrand. The collapse. Tuesday, 6:12 p.m. I got home early. The house was too quiet. Then I saw it. Papers scattered across the kitchen island like a storm had passed through. Credit card bills, rental listings, bank statements, a calculator blinking red. And Daniel, hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot, muttering to himself. He looked up when I entered. His voice cracked on the first word. "You have ruined everything." He threw a handful of papers in my direction. They fluttered down like broken promises. "Do you have any idea what you've done to me?" he shouted. "I can't afford my car payment. I can't afford my gym membership. I can't afford my life anymore." I stood still, my purse still on my shoulder. "That's not your life, Daniel," I said softly. "That was mine. You just lived in it." His eyes widened, half rage, half fear. "I hate you. I hate that you made me depend on you. I hate that I need you." And there it was. The confession behind every fight, every insult, every pathetic. He didn't hate me. He hated needing me. "Then stop," I said quietly. "You're free." He sank into a chair, shaking his head. "You think you're so much better than me, but you're boring, cold, and no one else will ever want you." I smiled faintly. "Maybe. But at least I'll never mistake comfort for love again." Something in him broke then, not loudly, but visibly. He stopped yelling. His shoulders dropped. And for a flicker of a moment, I saw the scared boy beneath all that anger. 10 years old, watching his dad leave, promising himself he'd never feel small again. He just didn't realize he'd spent adulthood making everyone else smaller instead. The exit plan. The next morning, I emailed my lawyer, Patricia Lang. She specialized in financial settlements and cohabitation agreements. When I showed her my documentation, she whistled. "Most people come in here with tears and receipts stuffed in shoeboxes," she said. "You came in with a case study." She drafted the papers swiftly, a property transfer confirmation, repayment ledger, separation of accounts. Daniel would move out by the end of the month. He'd take his car, his personal belongings, and whatever savings he could access. I'd keep the house I'd paid for, the one with my name on the deed and my initials on the mortgage checks. When Patricia asked how I felt, I told her the truth. Like I'm closing an audit. A long one. Messy. Costly. But necessary. The night before he left, Daniel tried one last trick. He stood in the bedroom doorway wearing cologne he hadn't touched in months, leaning against the frame with a practiced half smile. Maybe we should have one last night, he said. It wasn't affection, it was desperation disguised as nostalgia. I didn't even look up from my laptop. No, Daniel, I don't sleep with history. He laughed bitterly, but it came out wrong. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, but I'll regret it privately. He moved out 2 days later. No goodbye hug, no closure speech, just the sound of his car pulling away and the faint smell of his cologne lingering in the hallway, like a ghost too proud to admit it's dead. When I locked the door, I didn't cry. I made tea. Then I sat down at my desk, opened my spreadsheet, and changed the file name. From household ledger to case closed. A week passed, then 2. I started sleeping through the night again. The house stayed clean, quiet, peaceful, until one night, nearly midnight, the phone buzzed, his name on the screen. I let it ring once, twice, then stop. But something in me knew this wasn't over, not yet, because guilt and desperation have a pattern, and Daniel was about to complete it. It happened 3 months after he moved out. I'd finally stopped checking his socials. His things were gone, the silence had become comfortable, and my evenings were full of small, ordinary peace, the kind that used to feel foreign. Then, one night, the phone rang. 2:07 a.m. The kind of hour when nothing good ever calls. I didn't need to check the name. My stomach knew before my eyes did. Daniel. I answered anyway. Old habits die hard. His voice was barely recognizable. Raw, frantic, broken in places that used to sound smug. Emily, he choked. Please don't hang up. I made a terrible mistake. I need you back. I said nothing, just listened. The same way you listen to a ghost, realize it's still haunting the living. He started sobbing. Not quiet tears, but the desperate kind, messy and loud, like he'd been holding his breath for months. I can't do this, he gasped. I thought I could afford it. I thought I could manage. But my rent's $2,000 a month. My cards are maxed. I'm living on ramen noodles. I'm drowning, Em. Please, I need you. I waited until he ran out of words. Then I asked softly, You need me or you need my money? He went quiet. That's not fair, he whispered. You know I love you. Do I asked. Because love doesn't vanish when the credit limit hits 0. He started talking fast, trying to fill the silence. My therapist says I have abandonment issues, from my dad leaving. She says I push people away because I'm scared they'll leave first. That's why I said what I said that night. I was scared you'd stop loving me, so I made you stop first. It was such a perfectly tragic confession that, for a moment, I almost pitied him. But pity isn't love either. No, Daniel, I said gently. You didn't push me away because you were scared. You pushed me away because you wanted control. You wanted to feel needed without ever needing anyone back. He broke down again. I can change. I swear I can. I'll pay for dinners. I'll be more romantic. Stop, I said. You had 5 years to do that. You only want to change now that you've lost what made your life easy. You don't understand, he shouted suddenly, voice cracking. I need you. The old me would have melted at that word. The woman on the other end of the call didn't. You need stability, I said. You need therapy. You need to learn that comfort isn't the same as love, but you don't need me. He started to say something, but I hung up before he could finish. Then I blocked the number. A week later, I went on my first real date in years. His name was Ethan Lynn, 29, a mechanical engineer who smiled like the world hadn't worn him down yet. He asked me questions that didn't sound like interviews. He actually listened. At the end of dinner, when the check came, he reached for it first. I asked you out, he said, so this one's on me. It wasn't the money that moved me. It was the principle, the quiet offer of equilibrium. On our third date, he showed up with a small bouquet of sunflowers. You said once you liked them because they turned toward the light, he said shyly. I laughed. You actually remembered that? Of course, he said. Details matter. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Not as a caretaker, not as a provider, as a person worth noticing. A few nights later, I sat alone in the same dining room where everything had started. No candles this time, no grand gestures, just me, a cup of tea, and the quiet hum of a life that finally balanced. On my laptop screen, the spreadsheet still existed. Renamed, reorganized, archived. Column A, expenses closed. Column B, lessons learned. I hovered over a cell and typed a final note. You can't audit love, but you can measure respect. I smiled and closed the file. Then I looked towards the window where faint morning light was beginning to rise, and for the first time in years, I realized the world wasn't quiet because I was alone. It was quiet because it was finally mine.